I'll just call myself. I think it's such a. Thank you very much for such a title. I've never considered myself to be one. Yeah, and as an investigator, I want to say, Mama Africa, we get a lot of very very negativity and comments and very very aggressive views. To the extent that you would never think that you're a leader. I mean, look, I don't think I would ever be a leader. I think I'm just an investigator, period. But thank you very much. Well, good evening, folks, and thank you for bringing me on this space. I'm also running a parallel because I understand some people might not be in a position to access the spaces, but I would also like those who are watching on video, if you go on the space, the link that we have posted here on, please join if you want to say something, if you want to come in, if you want to pass a comment. I think it will be really, really important for you to be a part of this current space that is on the Upoa. It is on Twitter space, United People of Africa. So Upoa, I'm going to put the link here. So if you want to say something, you want to interject, and the like, or ask questions, you can literally join in. I can see some people are starting to troll in here via video. Okay, good evening to you. Well, thank you for inviting me here on Upoa to discuss from the bits that I have over the Goldmafia. Tonight, I'm going to try and relate everything to what is happening right now. Everything that we investigate does not make sense until it is relatable, until there is some connection to what is happening right now. Then people can actually start to identify and put and connect the dots between what has been investigated, what has come out in the documentary, and what is happening right now. And tonight I'm going to talk about a subject which I briefly introduced last week, but then we will still remain in the focus of part 1 and part 2. Now, this subject is obfuscation. Now, a lot of people lately, and I will start with this, we are at a moment where in Southern Africa, for those who are not from the Southern Hemisphere, the current political setup has got the Southern African Development Community meeting recently, just 2 weeks ago, and to discuss over matters to do with conflict in the DRC, but at the same time, conflict, I don't know if I can call it conflict, but it is conflict, or post-election here, impasse and conflict in Zimbabwe. And at present, there is a vacuum of knowledge around what really is the regional body doing regarding the situation in the DRC and also regarding what's happening in Zimbabwe. But I think the last part there is the most that is without much detail for our viewers, readers, and subscribers, and just practically the generality of the Zimbabwean community. And this is because what happened was when the meeting was held in Angola, Luanda, 2 weeks ago, the heads of state, while they were in that conference room, decided to switch off all devices. And so people were not allowed to stream. I mean, I couldn't even, my own connections were inside the SADC establishment. It could not give me a line. I was actually literally talking to two of them actually, over the phone just 10 minutes before the meeting. And I couldn't go. The phone had to be cut. Everything had to be cut. And the only detail from what happened inside came out. People could only access from the conversations by the parties as they were walking out of that building. And so now what's happening in the SADC is that regarding Zimbabwe, the de facto, or the, shall we say, sort of caretaker head of state, Emerson Mnangagwa, is meant to be getting a visit of a delegation of SADC heads to the country, and this is to negotiate the future of Zimbabwe, because he has been told point blank that he rigged the elections. Number one, that he lost the election, and some people didn't know this. I know it, by the way, because for some people those who might have been watching, I have been on the ground many times, even at SADC in the last 3 months, and I know certain things that are happening over there that are not published as yet. So I want to just say that there is very, very clear determination by SADC, contrary to what some people have been portraying there, to fix Zimbabwe's problems and treat the current crisis in Zimbabwe with the same focus as they give to the conflict in the DRC. But why am I talking about this? Someone would say, oh, why am I talking about this, and yet we're supposed to be on the Goldmafia? And I'll tell you why. There's a connection. The events of the last 2 weeks will show you the same, I can call it fate, or I can call it attacks, okay, against the progress that the regional body has made against lawlessness at a head of state level. The attacks that have emerged against the players who are working hard are the very same attacks that have happened against the move to investigate the Goldmafia. That is the similarity there. And when you see an explosive investigation like the Goldmafia, an investigation that takes over 7 years of hard work, researchers risking their lives, losing money, and so many times going through hit and misses. Right, and those who are here, can you tell me if you have ever seen a story that has been investigated for more than 2 years, or sorry, for even up to 2 years? One story. I'm asking folks. I think I've got a few speakers here. I can also ask them as well. Do you know any story that has been investigated in Africa or outside where journalists took up to 2 years? I mean, just a 2-year period investigating. Show me one. In my career, in my lifetime, the Goldmafia happens to be the only African story that has taken such a long time. And hear me, Al Jazeera took 4 years investigating it as a separate news entity. I took a total 7 years because I started on my own in 2015. So this is a big, blastive investigation. It's an investigation that I'm sure people can imagine. I hope you can. Those who know how documentaries are made, how much money is spent in researching, in filming, in reviewing, and until later on people start watching what they see as drama. But it hasn't been drama. It has actually been a life affair for over 7 years. And I want to say tonight, when you see the website that is called zimi.net, and yet when you see me on video, I'll call it zimi.com. The reason is zimi.com was hacked by one of the mafias in 2015 during the course of this investigation. And at that time, we just didn't have enough ability or resources to clean up that server, and ended up reverting to .net. It is still there .com, but just to say, this is the kind of sacrifice and loss that we've encountered, and that is in addition to a real danger to life over the years. So quickly, someone is saying here, is typing in the video, says that is not an investigation. I don't know what you mean is not an investigation. Let me proceed. So now when I get to part one, there is a statement by arguably the most notorious, you could say notorious, gang members, who is an Asian. And he says, I wrote a book about it, how democracy must work in Africa. I wrote a book about it. And I devised a way of using the money that I take from the central bank, and I keep the dictator, Daniel Arap Moi, in power. People will remember there, back in the 1990s, there was a dictator in Kenya, and that is where the Goldmafia investigation has its origins. When this man called Kamlesh Patni was running a company called Goldenberg, and he devised a way of taking money from the central bank and then create what looks like an export operation for business, exporting gold. But in actual fact, it is smuggling. It's just taking figures from here to there. You would bring in gold from the DRC into Kenya, and then just mix figures and appear as if there is real business that the country is gaining, when in actual fact, Kenya is losing 600. We're talking here not in the thousands, not in the tens of thousands, folks, not in the millions, in the billions. And how did this happen? It was all through an arrangement that Kamlesh Patni had with the head of intelligence of Kenya. And it was a business deal that was done right at the top there, in a model that has since been replicated in other countries. People will know that Shepherd Bushiri recently was smuggled out of South Africa by President Chakwera's jet, as reported in South Africa, and literally fled prosecution. And the same Shepherd Bushiri has an arrangement in which the head of intelligence in Zimbabwe, who was Kemba Mohadi back then, he is taken in as a spiritual son, in quotes, and in no time at all, Bushiri brings in his own colleague, or is it spiritual father, Hubert Angel, within less than a year and a half, to become an ambassador of Zimbabwe. All just like that. As magical as it sounds, from nowhere, you have key government roles being played in two major countries of SADC, Malawi and Zimbabwe, by false prophets who we have tested across the time. These are prophets who were rooted in deep money laundering that even Hubert Angel confesses. And then just recently, there's a video of Shepherd Bushiri boasting that the head of intelligence of Botswana is his spiritual son. And you actually see the head of intelligence of a diamond-rich country being subjected to servitude as a spiritual son of a false prophet. I mean, excuse me, Shepherd Bushiri, of all people, controlling the the head of intelligence of Botswana. So the same technique that we saw of Kamlesh Patni running Kenya through the head of intelligence is the same technique that is being replicated in Kenya, Malawi, Zimbabwe, now Botswana. So 4 countries, is it? But in part 1, folks, you actually see Kamlesh Patni in there revealing that there are several other countries. And back then, at the time of the filming, he even mentions Zambia. He mentions a few other countries in there. Uganda is one of them. Mentions DRC. And they're boasting. And one thing that they demonstrate is that they can operate so easily and control these countries, steal gold, steal the minerals, and then use those minerals, use that money to fund the dictatorships of those countries. In my setup here, in the country that I come from, we've got this young man called Upoa, who's got 2 identity documents, 2 totally different date of births. The gap in between is 5 years. One is in 1973. The other one is in 1979. Sorry, 1978, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So we're talking here, someone who's running with 2 identity documents. And yet he manages to snake his way through and into, and now literally physically controlling a government. How did we get here? How did we get here, folks? Where a country of 15 million people that are well learned. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Zimbabwe is rated one of the most educated countries in Africa. Malawi has also got its own rating. Botswana, its own. How did we get here? Where our economies, our resources are controlled by thieves who we actually know are thieves. Now, it's one thing to blame this on a political party, like we stated last week. From my studies, this actually has got very little or anything to do with political parties. There's a loophole that is being used. And I think here, that loophole, we can trace it right down to the words by Kamlesh Patni, when he's boasting to the undercover journalists in part 1 and saying, I devised a way how African democracy should work, according to me. And I helped to keep Daniel Arap Moi in power. And even after he was discovered, when the opposition had taken over power, he still was not, the prosecution did not finalize. How does that happen? When you watch, you'll see on video, when he's coming out of court, and people are screaming at him, you're a thief! You're a thief! You stole 600 million! They're screaming like this. And while they're doing that, nothing else happens afterwards. Or someone could say, no, it's because of the yellow, which parties are in Kenya, by the way? Or it's because of this political party, or it's because of Odinga, it's because of so-and-so. But I found out that there's something deeper that the African people need to identify. And this is the people who steal the gold, the actual physical resource, and the US dollars are one category. But the people who steal the gold of the human intellect, I found them to be the greatest enemies of Africa. The people who steal the attention. How do they steal the attention? How do these individuals manage to control millions of people and just make millions of people become totally zombified like that? And no one can see. How does that happen? Someone just put there Harry Kalaba, a presidential candidate in Zambia, who I managed to converse with for over a month via phone as a total stranger. And I was able to get his deepest secrets as a total stranger from a conversation that was less than 2 minutes. And in that initial 2 minutes, he gave me his deepest secrets of a random conversation. I think here, this speaks to the greatest theft of our continent, which is not so much in the actual physical resource, the gold, the minerals, whatever it is that has been stolen, but it speaks to a resource that is inside the decision-making faculties of the human spirit. And this is where the greatest theft is. I've been able lately, in the last few months, in a different investigation that I was running of over 550 women who are in my country of birth, the southern region of Matabeleland. Now, these are 550 women in a housing scheme who were made to deposit a total 25 million US dollars, and for absolutely nothing that they were getting in the end. They were promised land that doesn't exist. And yet they paid 25 million. How did it happen? How could people who are in the nursing profession, social work, these are people, some of them have got master's degrees. How could they be fooled in the space of 3-4 years? I think it's actually 7 years total. Continue to deposit a total 25 million. Just a small group, 550 women, and be duped. And even up to now, of these 550 women, I only have 35 of these women in a group who believe that, who have seen the truth, that they were duped. The rest, over 515, still believe that they're going to get land. And folks, I need you to hear this. A simple Google search will tell you that the land that they were sold, that they're being made to buy, is being fraudulently sold. The government of Zimbabwe has already announced that agricultural land sold in Zimbabwe is being fraudulently traded because you cannot buy agricultural land anymore. Why? Because it is given free of charge. You're given 99-year leases. So you don't need to buy agricultural land. But you find that people who are well learned have been believing in this. Now it comes to what I'm talking about right now. When I flip now and I come to this issue of the mafia. That what has been stolen from the African soul, which needs to be unearthed, is that resource that is in the decision-making faculties. When we find that, we must recover it. And then after that, we must stop the thief from coming back to take it. Once we have managed to close up this area, we will be able to be victorious as a continent. Because if 25 people, if 550 people, just 550 can lose 25 million, can you imagine? What about 2,000 people? You do the maths. What about 10,000? Just 10,000. I mean, look, the African diaspora in, the Africans who are in the diaspora, they're in their millions, those who are in the diaspora. So you can calculate there. How many could be sold fake land? You're busy shifting. You are not sleeping in South Africa, in Australia. And then you're busy pumping here billions to thieves. Now, these are thieves who are not even political, like this particular setting that I've just been sharing just now. So where does this get to? It gets us to that term that I introduced right at the beginning, obfuscation. What you will see in part 1 and part 2 of the Gold Mafia is how the technique of obfuscation is used to steal not the actual physical minerals, but to steal the attention. Take away your attention. Take away your decision-making resource, vital resource. And then when you're like that, you can be fooled. Oh, this is how these men and women, some of them are not even as educated, are running multi-billion-dollar schemes. Money that they have stolen, and they are continuing to steal from our countries. And they're not stopping there. The money that they steal, they then use it to fund dictatorships. And these dictatorships will continue to run our continent until Africans discover that what has been stolen here, the greatest thing that has been stolen, is that resource that is in our decision-making faculties through the technique of obfuscation. How? What does it mean to obfuscate? To hide something. Yeah? And you know the term money laundering, it means to hide something as well. Hide the origins of money. Just hide the origins of money so that it can move here, it can go there, it can go there. So we're talking one of the same thing when we say obfuscate, when we say money laundering, when we say hide. Okay? It's exactly the same thing. Now quickly, I want to go to now what has happened. People are asking me around the SADC, the expectations that the millions of both Zimbabweans and Zambians have around the investigation that SADC did in Angola. And why is it that right now, in the last 7 days, there's been a shift? If people see, there are certain characters, particularly on social media, who have now shifted the focus. They've shifted discussions from the person who's supposed to be investigated here, the person who was told that he does not have a right to run Zimbabwe. And so they've made to be shift that attention now to the head of the portfolio for security and politics, Hakainde Hichilema. So people saw narratives being pushed there. Hakainde Hichilema is a dictator. Hakainde Hichilema has done this. And they also saw statements being generated. Now statements are being published by various people. And the last one is a young man who has been falsely claiming for over 2 years that he is a secretary of the United Party for Democratic, the UPND, that is Hakainde Hichilema's party. A young man called Joseph Kalimbwe. And this young man is on video literally lying that he is a secretary of information in this party. And when he dropped the latest statement, soon after that of the law society, some law society officer in there, and then so soon after that, a lot of people read that statement and they couldn't see that this young man is actually someone who has been misrepresenting Hakainde Hichilema's party. And some people can't even see the deception with this young man. And you would ask yourself, how and why? Why is it that all of a sudden there are emotions that have been shifted to starting so that people start to feel as if Hichilema is a problem, like it's either a problem or Hichilema is on his way out or Hichilema is in trouble. People can't even see the gross dictatorship of Emmerson Mnangagwa, at whose hands over 30,000 Zimbabweans have been killed and more are being killed. I mean, someone who is running a country, I'm not being political, I'm just being factual and legal here, who is running a country in which he announces that his citizens will be killed once they are found guilty of stopping the rain. Like, if he just wakes up and he suspects that Simba Chikanza is the one who made the rain not to fall today, so he would just send army to kill Simba Chikanza. A whole president who makes such announcements. People have shifted their rage from this type of an individual towards a democratic president of a country that is working like Zambia, a country that has managed to fix its own currency, such that within 6 months of a successful democratic election, its currency is now better than the rand. The way its institutions are now being run are far much more democratic than arguably any other African country. And kids in this country are now going to school for free. I mean, free education for over 2 years. A country that might not have that much resource as countries like South Africa. But things are working. People have lost focus over such efficiency by Hichilema. Now they're focused on these negative thoughts. I mean, I've seen some of these people must have seen these themes, particularly in the Zimbabwean community. Oh, what's happening in Zambia? What's happening in Zambia? What is going on? There have been narratives that have been planted in the communities at this stage to obfuscate the wrongdoing by Emmerson Mnangagwa. And this is the technique that is used by money launderers in and outside the Goldmafia. Even the very people who, when we broadcast this documentary in March and April, who worked to lower down the community resolve to fix the problems of the Goldmafia. Host, I'm going to be rounding down in less than 5 minutes. I'm going to show some people some stats here. This is how it's done. This is how your brain will be operating, like literally. I've managed now to go even into Google stats to show how Africans are controlled through narratives that then create these obfuscation facades So our citizens can't see what is going on. It's the same technique that was used by the Russians on the Americans. People remember the 2016 election when narratives were put in the American society. So Americans started thinking every time Donald Trump would open his mouth, he would make a statement such as, "They're coming after us." Who? Just by saying they're coming after us, everyone would just go totally zombified. If he says, "Immigration, we're gonna build a wall," everyone would just go wild and they would stop thinking. If he says, "Let us go and bomb Capitol Hill," Americans would become so stupefied and they would just literally take bombs and guns to go and bomb their own parliament. Just by speaking narratives. These are narratives where there is very little truth. There's very little truth. These are mere indoctrinations, thoughts, ideas that are thrown so that they control the emotions and they steal that vital resource where citizens make the their decision making. And from then on, citizens become zombified and their humanity is stolen. In that state, even money can be stolen from them. I mean, if someone can make a statement on social media and you decide to take a gun and you become so stupid like that, even your bank account can be raided and you're gone. As we speak right now, America is struggling to control this type of narrative pushing, but I call it obfuscation. We see it. Like right now, I'm going to show the host two screenshots of how our communities have been controlled over the gold mafia as we were investigating. And it's the same technique that has been used after the Luanda conference, the extraordinary summit, the SADC extraordinary summit, to make people feel defeated, to make citizens stop thinking. And then when they lose that focus, anything can be stolen from them. Even money can be stolen from them. So, host, I'm sending you this. This is what happened on the 28th. I don't know if I should post it. Oh no, I think I posted it on my Twitter space. So I'm on my Twitter page. So I'm gonna give you a link here, host. I'll put it on the. So this is what happened.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, I'm just gonna show you some. This is how do I post here? By the way, how do I do it? How do I do it? By the way, how do I give you?
Share. Tap the icon for sharing, then click on the space to come direct. Thank you.
Oh yes, I think I've seen it. Yeah, I remember now. I remember how to do it. Okay, so I'm just gonna. This is what happened. I'm hoping that it will appear quickly. Okay. Yeah, I've got some of our Zambian brothers were writing to me saying, Simba, we're waiting for the episode for Goldmafia where we would want to see the iPhone 15 being delivered to it. Yeah, you're going to be watching it shortly soon. I apologize for the delay. Oh, no, I think I put the wrong one. I apologize. I put the wrong one. I'm supposed to put this one here. I'm supposed to put the one, this is Google figures showing impact of those who sabotage the public with false narratives. I think you've got it. Yeah, you've got it now, host, right? Host? Okay.
Let me look for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've put it on the, it says Google figures show the impact of those who sabotaged, okay, the public with false narratives. So that is another false narrative there. Can we see? So this is a man, by the way, just so that people know, it's well known, it's a public secret that I was and I still remain against the interview that was done by the news network that I work for, Al Jazeera, with the man that is on the screen there, that you see there. And this is what happened. When he posted on his portal on the 14th of April, that the opposition will do nothing. Can you see that, host?
Honestly, not yet. Can you please share it via the comments? Then I will share
I think it's actually there now. It's actually there. I'm sure people can see it. Mama Africa, you can see it, right? The one that says Google figures. Mama Africa?
No, it's not yet there.
It's not there.
Yeah, it's not there. Can you share it via the comment? I'll post it right away. Thank you.
Okay, let me reshare. Thank you. I'm gonna do like a reshare, even though I shared it again, so I'll reshare it again. So you're gonna have it in two now. So there are two of them now. Can you see? Right, so I'm sure people, it will update. Okay, those who are on, okay, those who are watching on video. So I'm going to show you. These are the narratives. I'm going to try and put it on the screen. So this is the way. Okay, so that is the post there on the 14th of April. Can you see? 14th of April. Now, I'm going to show you, okay, so it says here, let us assume that this was a national intelligence operation. Professor Maduku, is the freezing of Angel's accounts a national intelligence operation too? These guys know that Zimbabweans will do nothing beyond tweeting. The opposition will do nothing, or will do nothing beyond chatting. Now, you see that statement, will do nothing. I did a scan on that statement, so it's highlighted. If you go to the 28th of May, 2020, you will notice, 28th of May, 2020, you notice that that very same statement is the same that this man wrote at the beginning of his anti-corruption, right at the inception of his anti-corruption career. He said there that tomorrow's courts will rule against the MDC, not because Mnangagwa controls everything, but because he knows that the opposition will do nothing. And he put that in capital letters there. Will do nothing. And then he says, if the opposition said no to this nonsense through action, ZANU-PF, so you're saying there ZANU-PF would stop. But the cash word there is the opposition will do nothing. The opposition will do nothing. Okay, those who are on video have already seen I've put it there. So that cash word there, why am I zeroing in on this cash word? Some people would say, Simba, what is in it? What is in it? Why should you even bother? You need to understand that statement is not just a statement. That is a hook. It is a narrative. That statement is manipulative. And some people can't see it. But you will notice then, if you go into the Google stats, the first thing that you see on the Google stat there is that the entire interest in the Goldmafia, as you can see, crashed to a zero within 48 hours. You can see there, within 48 hours, the entire news interest on the Goldmafia crashed. I'll put it here so people can see. There. So as soon as he posted this on the 14th, within 48 hours, can you see? The scale crashed, went down from 100 where it was, all the way down to zero by the 16th. It was now zero, totally zero, and out. And just slightly appeared as if it was, but the conversation were dying. Later on, they became completely dead. Getting into October, totally, completely, there's no more talk whatsoever about and around the Goldmafia. Everything has been killed, totally annihilated with that statement. People will do nothing. The opposition will do nothing. That statement is a narrative. It's a communication. that steals the attention of the human soul while working on the resolve. It is manipulative. It's a statement that defeats the entire story. What's the point then? Knife. That's what this is saying to the human soul. When the human soul sees that, hears that, reads that on Twitter or wherever, immediately the human soul will be like, okay, so you've done this investigation, you've spent 7 years, so what's the point? Everything is crashing. People are not going to do anything anyway. So the entire story has been defeated. The entire investigation has been defeated by a narrative. By a narrative. If you go on this very same man's posts just 4 days ago, you'll notice this is exactly what he wrote about SADC, about the regional body that has worked hard to put Mnangagwa to account. This is exactly what he also wrote. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm sure people can just can check their own. If you go on his post and you go into the search and you write SADC, you'll see where he actually said that SADC was doing nothing. And SADC was useless. Is useless. And through that, a new narrative is created. It's a narrative that shifts the attention from those faculties, those resources inside the human intellect that can be deployed to fix a problem, to other things. In no time at all, a generation has been lost. We'll notice from April this year up to August, when I got into Zambia, people had totally forgotten about the documentary. They just said, well, things are never going to happen anyway, anyhow. The entire story has been defeated by a narrative that is similar to those narratives that were used to crush the American civilization by fundamentalists like Donald Trump. So in no time at all, we'll discover that the African spirit is now being controlled by an external force that instructs to it that you're not going to get anywhere anyway, that you're defeated, you will never make it. So you find that after this now, who will fund investigations like the Goldmafia when people have been told that nothing will happen? Who will investigate when people have been made to believe that the mafia is too powerful, that they're invincible? Who will believe? Who will believe in good over evil? Who will believe in the truth over what is false? Africans will continue to just roam around like zombies who can't figure out what next. You're born to suffer is the thought, is the mentality, and you will die suffering because the thieves will always have their way. So these are the dangerous narratives that make it difficult now for Africans to move from the state of their deprivement, that status, to fixing their issues. There's one thing here that I want to say, folks, and this really hurts me when I ponder on this. How is it that in all our richness of great African researchers, well-learned people, that not even one person has popped up to ask, how can we recover our money? We want to get our money. Show us the way. And why do I say so? It's because in the documentary, you actually see the addresses where your gold and money is. There are people right now in these various African countries, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and DRC, who have had accounts, particularly in Zimbabwe, their accounts, their foreign accounts were raided. There are ways of recovering this money, especially from these individuals who have got addresses outside the UAE and outside Zimbabwe. We get to see that there's been very little or any desire to want to get what is yours. And that's what I talk about. What has been stolen is not so much the mineral. The greatest mineral that has been stolen is the faculties of the human soul, the faculties of the decision making of the African soul. Those faculties need to be recovered. We start there. And we should also start where we identify who are these thieves who are roaming around our communities on social media, generating dangerous narratives, generating narratives where they control people. I'll give you another very dangerous narrative that Boris Johnson used to control the psyche of the British people, leading to Great Britain foolishly divorcing from the European Union. That narrative was, Europe is stealing our healthcare money, our money for cancer machines. How many remember that narrative? 2015, 2016, flung by Boris Johnson. And he was very successful in pushing that narrative. British people started believing when they were told that the UK is going to recover 350 million a week, that is going over to Europe, because that money is being stolen by European politicians, when there was nothing like that. British people would discover after voting for Brexit that they had been deceived. And as we speak right now, the English economy is struggling because it got deceived by a narrative. Whoever was behind those narratives is worse than the Goldmafia, because they can control a whole country. Someone who can sit there on their computer and throw narratives to make you believe something. It's, like in this particular case, healthcare. Just always posting about healthcare. Always posting and saying, oh, this politician has stolen money for cancer machines. And every time appear as if they are bringing good, important news. But in actual fact, what they are communicating to the human soul is a narrative with which they can obfuscate their agenda. They can hide their agenda while stealing from the resource of the decision-making faculties of the human soul. In no time at all, a great country like the United Kingdom is gone. The great so-called Great Britain is now a diminished Little Britain. All because of one or two individuals who sat there and decided to steal from the English people their decision-making faculties, their vital resource that makes up who they are, their thinking faculties. And I think this is what we get here in part 1 and part 2. And if we watch part 1 and part 2 of the Goldmafia with this type of understanding, I think we will get wiser. We will not only understand these unscrupulous people who are stealing from the African countries, but we'll also arm ourselves so that we are not taken advantage of. And it's all in that statement. I devised a way. And this is by Kamlesh Patni. He says, I devised a way. I created a model on how democracy should be run in African countries. I wrote a book about it. How I can keep dictators in power. We need to identify what that is and insulate ourselves as we study part 1 and part 2 with an agenda to address our present crisis. And as I get to end here, in our Zimbabwean community, Zimbabwean and Zambian communities right now, people have actually lost resolve. They're no longer believing that the SADC body can help to fix and bring an end to the present dictatorship. And all this can be traced to these dangerous narratives that have been put in the last few days. Africa must make a decision to lift itself from dangerous narratives. And I'm hoping that as I end here, and as I direct you to the Goldmafia documentary part 1 and part 2 on the Al Jazeera channel, you can go with this in mind. Watch it again. Do not let the dangerous narratives that were put by these unscrupulous people make you think that that documentary amounts to nothing. You can actually recover your money. I mean, I demonstrated it in a single phone call. In less than 2 minutes, I was already talking. I managed to get one of the agents into conversation and managed to talk with him for nearly a month, a whole month, communicating with him. I boast about it when I talk with Zambians, and I say to them, I had actually already taken over your country in a single phone call. I had managed to talk to a president level, someone who was the foreign affairs minister between 2014 and 2018, and someone who could be president of Zambia anytime, who could easily become, and who was working towards that. Managed to get him into conversations through a single phone call. I've managed to demonstrate these kind of things in so many other examples before. I've talked with whole presidents, like who are literally in power. Yeah, I've had even at one time the first lady of Zimbabwe, current first lady, the most powerful woman in Africa, calling me on video call and talking with her for over nearly an hour. Just showing people here, this is the power that you have. You have power to, if whole presidents, I can bring them into conversation with a single phone, a broken cell phone. and I can talk to them, and I can even remove them from power.
Simba,
Oh, sorry.
your mic is muted.
Oh, I apologize. I don't know how it got muted. I was saying here that if I can use my phone, I don't know where I last said this. If I can use my phone with my broken screen and talk to presidents, and talk to whole presidents and remove them, interview them, and manage to remove them from power with a phone, a simple cell phone, no gun, no bullet, no bomb, no UN peacekeeping force, just a simple cell phone. If I can do this, how much more power do you have? Those who are watching on this stream, come on, folks. I'm saying to the African people here, you're powerful. This power that you have, that someone has worked to suppress, you have enough power to fix all your countries from Cape to Cairo. I've demonstrated it. And this one that I did in August with one of these mafias is just one of those examples. So be careful. Abantu, where to? Our people. From Cape to Cairo. The person who stole minerals from you, the first thing that they stole from you is your intellectual decision making, especially that faculty that helps you to believe in the inside spiritual force that you have to fix anything. I am a living publisher and a living demonstrator of power that citizens have to fix any problem on earth, and I've demonstrated it over the time. So let us shift. We should shift our attention from those who make us feel that we are nothing, that will never amount to anything, or those who make us think that the problems of Africa will be fixed by politics, mere politics. And we start studying how we can use even the most insignificant resource. Discuss things like that. Believe in ourselves. And folks, from this documentary, part 1 and 2, I can tell you, watch it again. Oh, the space has ended. I don't know why. They'll probably start again later. We can fix our country. I don't know why the space has ended. Maybe someone has touched something over there. This whole SADC issue, also, folks, people are thinking. Some people are advertising. They're saying, panas chaitika. Listen to me. Murkunye msanye perwe. And the muchazo furirwa imimi. Because you're creating negative conversations. Instead of you speaking about those things that you can do, you can connect to, you are now allowing negativity to defeat you. Musa believe madadi characters aya varunye perai muchazo furirwa ni nagayenyu. I end.